Hey guys, so today I'm going to tell you 5 things you should consider before setting up your first reef tank. My name's Rob and I've been keeping reef aquariums for 3 or 4 years now. Before I got into this hobby, I'd seen reef aquariums and I'd never really thought about keeping one of these in my own home until I think it was the algorithm on YouTube showed me Coralfish 12G and how he kept a little 10-gallon nano reef tank. And from then, I started researching and thinking, you know what, this might just be something I want to get involved in. Now, the reason I'm making this video today is I didn't really know anyone who was keeping a reef aquarium at this point, and I found there were a lot of questions I kind of really wanted to know the answers to know if it was the right hobby for me. I thought I could maybe put a video together today just to help you evaluate if it's the right thing for you. So without further ado, let's get started. So number 1 is time. So like many hobbies, there's quite a lot to learn. So what I would advise before you getting into this hobby, you should really think about, do you have the time to dedicate to giving these animals the proper care that they require? Now, it's actually not the small things like the daily feeding that takes up all of the time. It's when something unusual happens in your tank, and when you're learning there's a lot more of these type of things where you have to go and spend hours researching it to try and find the solution. It's also the amount of like bigger maintenance jobs that you do have to do every so often. So really stripping things down and cleaning it. And if you've got a family and you want to spend a lot of time with them, then you might find that a reef aquarium is just too much of a drain. So I'm not going to tell you it's too much. That's totally obviously up to you. It can be a super rewarding hobby, but you should go into this knowing. Number 2, what's your aim? Like, why is it that you want to keep a reef tank? Is it that you want to learn about these marine animals and observe them within your home? Is it that you want to keep fish because you maybe like the colours? Is it the corals, or is it fish and corals? What you want out of this hobby is going to determine what kind of setup you get. And going back to point 1 as well, like how much time you have to put in and how involved you want to be might steer you down towards certain types of tanks to others. So even within corals, there are much easier corals to care for and are much more forgiving than there are for others. Now, people often call these beginner corals, but I don't think that has to be the case, because actually, you could be super experienced but still want an easy to care for, low maintenance tank. Or maybe you just like the look of that type of coral. It isn't always true the other way around though, and that's that there are some corals that are definitely advanced corals, just because to be able to care for them properly and allow them to thrive, you really have to have quite a bit of knowledge, because they are not very forgiving of even small mistakes. So what I'd recommend is go away and look at different types of reef or fish tank and try and decide which one might be the right style and look that you like what you want to get out of it. And from there, you can pick the right setup and equipment that'll work for you. Closely related to that, let's now move to number 3, and that is the aquarium and the setup. Now, we're not going to be able to get into this completely today. I'm going to make a follow-on video in the next few weeks which will look at some different types of aquarium setup, maybe give you some ideas and perhaps something to choose from. Today, what I am going to say, depending what you want to keep in your aquarium is going to depend on the size, maybe the type of equipment you're going to buy. So if you are going to want to keep small polyp stony corals, these are like the big branches that you see in a lot of people's tanks, then you're going to need really bright lights, and probably more lights than you are going to need, for example, if you want to keep what we call soft corals. These are more of the zoanthids, which are the little ones that look a bit like flowers, for example. So the type of coral you want to keep is going to determine what type of equipment you need. What size of tank you get as well is a really interesting topic, because there's different schools of thought. So you could start on a smaller tank and think, well, this is a lower investment, and therefore you get to find out if you like the hobby or not before investing in something much bigger. I think this is very true. There's a lot of people who disagree, because water chemistry is really important in keeping a reef aquarium, and having a bigger aquarium makes it a lot easier to keep that reef chemistry in balance. So some people would say go as big as you can get, and they're also working on the basis that you're probably going to get hooked in this hobby, and if you do, then you're kind of going to have sell what you've got. You'll probably lose some money in selling on that first smaller reef tank, and maybe not all of your equipment would be suitable to upgrade to the bigger one. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. This just depends. Are you the kind of person who wants to go all in right from the start? My recommendation probably is to go for a small nano tank first. But as I said, what we'll do, I'm going to actually cover this in another video in the next few weeks. So if you do want to see a few different setups that I might recommend for somebody getting into this hobby, then subscribe to this channel, and then you will get notified when I release that video in the next few weeks. Okay, number 4 is the location of the tank. Now, if you've got a smaller tank, you are probably going to be able to move it a lot easier, but don't kid yourself. Once you put a reef aquarium in, to move it is a really big deal, even if you're just moving it across the room. Like, for example, if you've got 300 litres of water in there, just think how much the water alone weighs without all of the rock and the equipment, and you'll find very quickly there's a lot of different plugs you've got for this. So you can move reef aquariums, but you also cause a lot of instability in there, and stability is one of the really important things when keeping a reef tank. So my advice would be, if you are thinking about getting a reef aquarium, particularly a larger one, then if you've got any kind of decorating work or anything you want to put in the room where you are going to keep it, then definitely get this done before you set up that tank, because once you do that, it's going to be really, really difficult to move afterwards. The other thing as well is, like, you will spill water when you're working in it. There will be splashes of water. I would recommend a hard floor if possible. I mean, if it's tiled, perfect. If not, I mean, I've got like a hard wood flooring, like a laminate flooring down in here, and you know, I do okay with that, but I do try and mop up the water really quickly when I spill it, so that it doesn't cause any kind of lasting damage. The other thing is, just think about access to the tank. So if you are setting one up, you know, you probably don't want to put it right against the wall. At least leave a little bit of a gap so that you can get down the side. Okay, the last one, and I don't want to understate this, it's cost. Keeping a reef aquarium is typically not cheap. It can be really quite expensive. Now, of course, expensive is relative. It depends how much money you've got. But corals aren't that cheap. The equipment definitely isn't cheap. There are ways to set up a reef aquarium cheaper, but even cheap is still gonna cost you a bit. And it's just a lot of the products that are out and equipment are very niche, specific to the hobby, and it's just expensive. So I'm not going to give you any specific numbers, because, you know, there are a lot of things that come into this and influence just exactly that. You can definitely buy equipment as you go, and if you're smart about it, you can kind of like buy equipment that will last you a long time into the future as well. Now, one of the things you can do is buy equipment secondhand, but it's important to know which equipment to buy secondhand and which to buy new. If you want some guidance on this, I made a video a few weeks back on this, so go check that out. And I'll tell you where you can safely buy secondhand equipment to save some money, and where, in my opinion, you should stick to new. And if you do have any questions about this, and you're not sure, you know, what might be the right choice for you based on what you're trying to achieve, drop a comment. I'll try and help how you can, and I'm sure there's loads of other people who'll chip in as well. Okay, guys, so that's all for today. Hope you've enjoyed. If you have, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel so that you get notified of new videos, and until next time on Indoor Reef, Keep it stable, keep it fun, and keep reefing.